think that I could maybe try and make it colder, colder than the etched in stone when I know I
Welcome to
just wanna be your
T-Bone's
best
Best
friend,
of
baby.
Roanoke show. Music, comedy, and conversation featuring HB, the Honey Badger.
Honey Badger don't care.
Now, on with the show.
There's coffee, HB, and then there's coffee. And we're at a real coffee place. It's RND Coffee Lounge right here in beautiful downtown Wasena. And we're with the Randolph brothers, Steffon and Quincy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for hosting T-Bone's Best of Roanoke show. We want to talk about your shop. We want you to highlight things you think that people would really want to know about. I want to hear about your cold brew and your hand brewed methods, your pastries. And also what's going on here in Wasena. It's kind of a renaissance. But first of all, where did you guys come from? Did you wake up one morning and say, you know what, let's open up a coffee shop in Wasena? Because I know, Steffon, we know you from the Shoots, and you work down there. And Quincy, I know you did some fine dining restaurant work in Chicago. So where did you guys come from? How did you end up here? What's your backstory?
Yeah, well, we ended up here. I suppose I got here first, and I'd been roasting coffee out in Cincinnati, and had gone to school at VCU and hung out there for a while after I graduated, but moved back to Virginia when my girlfriend got into physical therapy school here. You know, like Radford has their PT program out here with Jefferson College of Health Sciences and everything. And so that's what brought me to the area, and I'd always wanted to have like my own coffee operation, you know, going from working at other people's places, and just wanted to get something going for myself. And Roanoke seemed as good a place as any to start, and Wasena a better spot than most, you know, given that there wasn't any coffee here at all. So
That's true. It was like a coffee desert, so to speak.
oh yeah.
So you've worked before in coffee shops?
Yep, worked in my parents' coffee shop specifically in the outskirts of Richmond at one of the malls there that it's sort of started to fail. You know, traffic wasn't there, like big stores were pulling out, Chick-fil-A left, you know, and I often joke, like if Chick-fil-A can't make it in a mall,
That's a
then,
bad sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's sort of where I first got introduced to coffee, and then later, like especially like craft coffee specifically.
Now, your mom and dad, were they coffee people, or how did they get involved in the coffee shop business?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say they were coffee people, other than that they kind of really, my dad loved coffee, and it was actually his favorite coffee shop just right there in the mall that he used to go to all the time. And he was walking by one day and saw that, you know, she was pulling stuff out, and asked her what was going on, and she said she was closing. And, you know, that was just unacceptable to him, I guess. And you know, he was kind of also an entrepreneur, and just decided to buy it from her and make it his shop.
Oh, wow.
It's really like a spur of the moment kind of deal. You know, we were still in high school, and Dad, you know, our parents are school teachers. Dad just comes home one day, and we're all sitting around and chatting. And he's like, "So I bought a coffee shop," and I was like,
Wow.
Yeah,
Why?
come on, Dad.
Yeah. Was he a big coffee drinker? Is that something that?
It was, but
Yeah.
not, you know, not to the degree that we are now. I think we've definitely
Right.
surpassed him a bit.
Okay.
I don't know. He still might drink more coffee than us, but yeah, I guess maybe ours is a little bit more refined. But he's sort of come around too. Like owning the shop, I think exposed him to, you know, different types of coffee. You know, from like the Maxwell House or Folgers at home for a long time to, all right, now there are these great roasters in Richmond. Like he got some coffee from Rostov's Coffee, which is one of the first like real roasters in Richmond, I suppose, and then also from Carytown Coffee and Tea, and so that automatically just elevated, I think, the coffee quality that he was consuming.
Well, I know you guys did like a pop-up store next door in November, I think, last year, but then you opened up your own little store here in April. Is that right?
That sounds right, yeah.
Has your dad ever been here yet?
Yeah, they came, my dad and my mom, both of which were the main operators of that coffee shop in Richmond, came Easter weekend for a visit. And they were pretty impressed. I mean, they came on a Saturday, and we were full swing, rolling, semi-long lines. We were still picking up our speed at that point in time, but I think they were very happy with the space and pretty proud.
You know, your dad, you know, he came home after he got the shop, and at dinner he said, well, by the way, I bought a coffee shop. did you guys say, oh, by the way, Dad, Steffon and I got a coffee shop?
No, I don't think it worked quite like that, because I'd moved here and I'd been, I did the Grandin Farmers Market doing coffee even before I did the pop-up over here.
Yeah.
Just one weekend I was out there. But I've been just talking about how I wanted to get going, and so just sort of all of a sudden we were able to elevate, the degree to which we were doing coffee. So I think he sort of saw what was coming.
He was kind of there along the whole the evolution of it all, from like farmers markets to the pop-up location next door to a bit of both to me moving out here. I was heavily recruited by stuff I moved out here.
Heavily recruited.
I've only been out here, I guess, 3 months now.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. But I was still, cooking in Chicago, kind of living the fine dining lifestyle. I was actually in the testing phases of trying to pitch a business plan for a restaurant out there. And then that's kind of what also opened the door to me and Steffon talking about business more and more. And, hypotheticals started to become closer to reality. Came down for a visit, and everyone was just so nice. There were so many nice people.
Well, good. I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
Ended up moving out here and helping kind of spearhead the opening of this location here in Wasena. So.
Well, it's got nothing but, I was telling HB, nothing but 5-star reviews on the internet.
There's 1 4-star.
Oh, damn. Yes. We got to
He
find
bothered
out.
stuff on. He's like, it sounds like they had a great time. Like, why 4 stars? I was like,
They just couldn't pull the trigger on 5.
I guess.
Well, now, you do most of the pastries or all the pastries, Quincy? Do you work? What do you handle here?
only a few. I learned quickly that it's a lot harder to do everything and then also spend equal time behind the bar making drinks and then also handling paperwork and things of that nature. So we kind of have like 3 tiers in our pastry case, and I use the first tier to promote things we do here. So right now it's house-made banana bread and then kind of like an R&D signature seaweed brownie. And that one's kind of been the one that's caught people's eye. I work with, seaweeds and a lot of kind of like Japanese influences.
And that's
during my time in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so seaweed and chocolate was a flavor combination that I discovered and like really fell in love with. So it was never the idea of like, I want to do a seaweed brownie somewhere. And so when I got here and me and Steffon were talking about some of the things, some of the light food fare that we wanted to do, it was like, all right, I have seaweed and chocolate, what can I do with that? And then the seaweed brownie came to fruition.
So that's your signature brownie, but chocolate and seaweed would not be a combo that would naturally jump to my mind.
That's true, but I mean, I think a lot of people think seaweed and then they think sushi because that's kind of traditionally how they've seen it. Mm-hmm. I always kind of pitch that seaweed is an extremely versatile ingredient, and then once you kind of continuously work with it and seeing a few applications with it out of the norm, you'd be surprised at how many things are enhanced or at least pair well with seaweed that you might not expect at first.
Okay. And is that one of your more popular desserts?
It is, and then that's kind of one of 2 items on our menu that have like some significant Japanese influence. The other one being coffee jelly, which is kind of a technique that I've more or less copied verbatim from what I've seen in Japan.
Tell us about that, because I was wanting to ask you about
Yeah, I want to try that too.
jelly.
So the coffee jelly, we'll take one of our single origin coffees and we'll brew that fresh, and I'll lightly sweeten it with a bit of sugar, and then I'll semi-set it with a bit of gelatin so that when it cools back down, I can go through and cube it up. So you literally have like coffee jelly cubes essentially, and then we have like little ramekins where I'll put about 3.5, 4 ounces of that into a glass. And then in Japan at that point, coffee jelly is traditionally served with some type of cream and some type of sweetener. So for the version we do here at RND, I'll serve it with a splash of half and half and a light drizzle of sweetened condensed milk, and it's literally coffee you can eat with a spoon.
Ooh, sounds good.
I'll be back for that. Yeah, that sounds very good. Well, Steffon, you made me a nice coffee here. Tell me what you made me, and tell me what goes into that.
Oh yeah, so I made you just the nitro cold brew we do, which is another one of our signifiers, or I guess signature drinks, I suppose. And that's just cold brew coffee, which a lot of people might be familiar with. It's similar to iced coffee in that it's coffee that's cold, but a little bit longer of a process that you go through to make it, and it results in what I believe is like a smoother beverage, sort of minimizes the acidity and bitterness to a degree, and it's just really refreshing. And then we've taken that and subjected it to nitrogen, so like a similar process to how you might make a nitro beer like a Guinness.
Right.
So you end up with very small, dense bubbles that are in the coffee, and that's what creates like the creamy head of foam on the top, and so just sort of enhances the drinking experience, I think.
Very nice, very nice. And then, I've got I guess you can shame me for this, I've got a K-Cup machine at home. Have you ever heard of those?
Oh, of course, yeah, they're all the rage,
But if I wanted to upgrade, could I do some of this at home?
Well, I think so, especially with the cold brew. I offer like growlers of that, so people are familiar with growlers of beer.
Really?
We can do the same thing with the cold brew, and that's nice to just keep in the fridge and pour yourself a glass over ice whenever you want.
Yeah, especially in the afternoons, I like a cold coffee.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, there's a lot of places where you can take, whatever coffee you want and get like a reusable K-Cup and just fill it, with whatever coffee you want. So just get it ground to the right consistency, and then there you go. So that's one additional step you could take. So.
Okay, so I could try this at home.
You could, yeah.
All right, now as far as regional coffees or different flavors or different regions, that you guys have here, tell us a little bit about that. Where do you get your coffee from?
Yeah, so speaking super regionally, we get our coffee, most of it from Red Rooster Coffee.
Up in Floyd?
Up in Floyd, exactly. Because I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody really doing it better than they do. Because a lot of people are really just familiar with a few of the coffees that they make that you see at a bunch of places, but they have a pretty wide variety of coffee producing regions or origins, and then some just really nice single origin coffees. So like right now they're doing a bunch of great Costa Rican coffees. There's a few Burundi coffees, a washed in natural, that are really fantastic. The washed being a bit more citrus forward, the natural being more like jammy, strawberry, like those sort of notes. But then they have some great like French roast and more traditional offerings too. Oh, and Fantastic Ethiopian, yeah.
It's my favorite. They're Ethiopian. What they're doing right now is we offer it via pour over, and I think it's probably one of the best pour overs I've ever had.
Now, so the Fantastic Ethiopian, does that come from Red Rooster, or is that a separate?
It is. So Red Rooster, they're the roasters. So
Yep.
they source the coffee from these regions, whether it's Peru, Ethiopia, Costa Rica, and then they roast it there at their facility, and then they kind of distribute to places all over the country, occasionally over the world. And we're fortunate enough to be close enough in proximity, and even able to sometimes just drive out there and pick up coffee and really kind of be partners.
Right, okay.
I saw Red Roosters do a demo of a pour over. Explain to the audience what that is.
Yeah. So
And what does that signify, and what difference would that make?
Right. So like a pour over is just like a brewing method, and there are a number of different devices that you can use to brew a pour over, but like one of the most well-known ones is called a Chemex, and it's been around for a while. But have you ever seen like a glass, like hourglass shaped carafe looking thing?
Yes.
There's actually
Yes.
one just sort of hiding up there on the shelf, but
Okay.
that's one of the, I guess, longest running ones. And basically you just take a filter and you put it in the top cone, and we rinse it to make sure none of like the pulp from the paper finds its way into the coffee, and taints the flavor. But you add your grounds just like you would for like a Mr. Coffee, but then you control and manually pour the coffee over with like a gooseneck kettle, so you sort of have the pinpoint precision of where you're putting that water to make sure that all the coffee grounds get evenly extracted, versus a machine that might just sort of spray it out, and maybe right under the nozzle that coffee gets over extracted and adds a lot of extra bitterness that makes the coffee, less desirable. And like the coffee on the rim maybe gets under extracted, not enough water gets to that part, so it adds a little bit extra sourness. So you sort of have like a weird interplay of like extra bitter components and extra sour components, and just that's a suboptimal, in a lot of cases, way to brew coffee. So this way you get all the control and can just really make sure everything's properly brewed.
So you guys specialize in that. You specialize in cold brew. Any other specific coffee drinks that might be unique to this area that you'd like to highlight?
Well, Quincy's culinary background has really helped us to, I think, develop some cool like lattes as hot offerings, but also like lattes on tap. So just like the nitro cold brew, we have coming off the tap, we have some different lattes, and we sort of mix up the flavors each time. And I'll let Quincy sort of talk about this most recent iteration we're doing.
Yeah, so going into spring, I always kind of, sometimes I tell it as a joke, but my creative process when I'm thinking of a new dish or a new flavor is I'll literally go home and I'll just sit and stare at a wall. So I was staring at the wall the other day and I was like, springtime's coming, what am I in the mood for, what kind of ingredients are coming around that play well with coffee that can be super fun. And I'm just sitting there staring at the wall, and then like peaches hit me. Stone fruit is a common flavor, like a common note found in coffee. So I was thinking peaches, and then like warm peaches, cold peaches. So I figured I would do 2 different types of peach drinks. So for kind of like the espresso menu, I created a peach cobbler, kind of like in between a puree and a syrup. You use your peach cobbler lattes and peach cobbler cappuccinos. And then with Steffon's help, just like he's the one who kind of handles the cold brew, we make a limited up time nitro latte, which is cold brew mixed with a certain amount of milk and then a certain amount of syrup, where we kind of combine our talents and then put that on one of the kegs, and that's always in limited supply, and that's more of like a spring peach, so it's going to be fresher peach that we muddle with a bit of mint, and it's just super bright and refreshing. So both drinks are very peach forward, but in like very different ways. Now we have peach option for cold and a peach option for warm, so now it's just full-on peach season here.
It's getting peachy. So I could come in here different seasons of the year and find a different brew, different flavor. Wow, very nice.
Kind of whether instead of necessarily having a ton of different flavors all the time, we more or less try to offer the traditional flavors all the time. Like we source a nice single origin chocolate syrup for mochas. We make like a really nice Madagascan syrup for vanilla, and then we get a really nice honey in for like honey lattes. And then we spend time in between those. Like those are offered year round, trying to develop like just very unique and interesting and just tasty syrups that are a bit different. So in the past we've done like a springtime, which is lavender, rose petal, and thyme. And for that one we even like infused the milk for the nitro latte with rose petal, and that was a big hit. We've done
Orange vanilla, of
yeah,
course.
that one was on the new orange vanilla Coke. We did an orange vanilla cold brew, and that one was bonkers. People were they were loving it. We couldn't make enough. That was the first keg that we sold out of, and we sold out of it so fast that we didn't think it was fair to some of our regular guests who hadn't been able to make it in through the week to try it. So we made another keg of it and just sold out of that super fast.
Wow.
We try to keep it fun.
Sounds almost like microbreweries, the way that they switch up flavors of beers and try to create new stuff. Coffee shops going that way. Y'all's, it sounds like, especially. Always something new.
Yeah, with the beer background, I sort of get to see a lot of that firsthand, and so taking some inspiration from that, especially as I look to start bottling or canning the cold brew too. So.
I hadn't even really thought of how both our experiences play into like the rotation of flavors. Like Steffon just said, that's a very common thing as far as like microbreweries, select amounts of beer or types of beer, and then in the restaurant industry, especially in like fine dining, tasting menus are more or less always seasonal. So at the restaurant I was working at, we would do 8 tasting menus a year, pretty much a new one every 2 months or so, 1.5 months, and that way we could always use like the most seasonal of ingredients. So definitely some inspirations from both our past backgrounds.
Well, HB, this is not your Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
No, sir. This is serious stuff.
Well, one more coffee question before we move on. Internationally, is there a country, a continent where the best coffee beans
A
are grown?
region.
Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm sure there are people from a number of countries would claim to have the best coffee and,
Everybody,
that
yeah.
sort of thing.
We're number one.
It mostly depends on preference, though. You know, I think like Brazilian and Colombian coffee specifically sort of really shaped the American coffee palate, because a lot of coffee that has been used for years in, you know, just like house coffee, you know, folders again, Maxwell House, that sort of thing, often come from there. But it wasn't necessarily the best. It's often commodity grade coffee, which is, you know, below specialty. But it's a familiar flavor to people. So even if you have a really nice Colombian coffee, people can try this and like, oh, you know, this is familiar to me, but just a little bit better, you know. So people appreciate that. But a lot of people now in specialty coffee are often fans of the more fruit-forward, bright coffees, often from like Ethiopia, Kenya, places like that. And so it's just a matter of what you value in a cup. You know?
Okay.
I would say I like Ethiopian coffees generally, and that's just my preference.
Oh, it is.
Well, tell me about your lounge here. You specifically call it a coffee lounge, and it's got a certain vibe to it. So describe it to people who are listening. What is your vibe here at this place?
Well, you know, I think that it's you know, a lot of people say mid-century modern, but sort of combined with like a rustic, you know, sort of nature of like Roanoke. I think it's like a mashup, and that's neat. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd sort of talked about building a lounge space that like we're sitting in right now, but Quincy was the one who decided to sort of put that into the name and really sort of hone in on that component to make it a place where people wanted to come hang out and just be comfortable, almost like you're at home. You know, we can have a great conversation. So, you know, some comfortable seating where you can just kick back and, you know, just sit. You know.
Enjoy a good cup of coffee.
Yeah. So we have a couple different elements at play. You know, we've had this table that we're sitting next to here. Just a friend built that out of reclaimed pallets, and then we have like reclaimed barnwood on the wall from like a 100-year-old barn that was in the area at a camp here. And so you have those sort of like warmer tones and elements, you know, with the exposed brick and the concrete that sort of add a more modern, almost industrial feel without being too cold, I think.
And you got some artwork here by Ben Garst, our favorite artist.
Yes, indeed. You know, Ben Garst is a good friend of ours and has been very supportive in helping us, you know, fulfill the vision. And, you know, the idea was originally to have a rotating selection of art on this wall in particular, but his pieces here just fit so well. I kind of just want him just to stay as permanent part of the space.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he does a good job. Now, you guys are getting involved too. I saw where you're going to be working with the former Bubble Cakes, but it's now Pastel.
Or I think formerly Viva La Cupcake.
Yeah, Viva La Cupcake.
And yes.
That's right. They took over from Bubble Cakes in South Roanoke.
Oh, that's before my time, I think.
Yeah. And then you said something about Breadcraft too. So tell us a little bit about your other little ventures outside. Do you do stuff outside this particular building?
We do, or at least we're starting to.
Yeah.
With the Breadcraft pop-up, that's me not wanting to stray too far away from some of my fine dining roots. Sometimes I still get the urge to get back in the kitchen and, you know, do a multi-course dinner, which is what we're doing at Breadcraft in collaboration with Breadcraft. So tickets are already sold out, but it's going to be a 5-course meal by myself, Chef Alex, and the team at Breadcraft. You know, we're accommodating allergies, and I wanted to keep it what I consider approachable, so it's priced at a $60 price point. And I'm hoping that when everything goes well, this dinner will lead to more potential collaborations from R&D and other restaurants, and especially with, you know, some of the new things coming to the Wasena neighborhood. We're all about working with other small businesses and kind of fostering more small business relationships.
Well, let's talk about that real quickly as we start to wrap up. Within the last 2 years, there's been a lot that's popped up here. Tell us a little bit about your sense of what's going on in this community.
Well, it just seems like all positive development as far as I can see. You know, there was some spaces here that seemed were like underutilized, that had a whole lot of potential, and have recently been renovated by the Garlands and a few other folks. And so just all of a sudden we have a great vintage clothing and record store over here in Retro Get-Go, and then another like clothing store, Line and Toe, where the young ladies over there, Grace and Maggie, you know, design and produce their own clothing, which is really great. And so we're getting a restaurant and wine bar across the street, which I think will be a really wonderful addition. It's going to be Bloom, it's going to be called. And so it'd be great to collaborate with all of these businesses. You know, if we could play some records from like Retro Get-Go and, you know, different things like that. Maybe get some cold brew at Bloom. That'd be fun, just like we're doing at Pastel that you mentioned earlier. We're going to do some cold brew for them to have on tap, hopefully.
Nice.
And just like we have at Downshift right now, they serve kegs of our nitro coffee.
They do?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, we like
Yeah.
Downshift.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, my. Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, Steve is great. Everybody over there, Valerie and Kelsey, just all
Kelsey.
wonderful people.
Yeah, they are. Okay, excellent. Okay, well, how do people, tell us your store hours, how do people reach out to you, find you social media, what are your store hours and all that jazz?
Store hours Monday through Friday. We open at 6:30 in the morning, and we're open till 6 p.m. Saturday we open at 8 a.m. and we're open till 6 p.m. And Sunday's kind of our short day, so we open at 8 a.m. and we close at 3. That being said, we're open 7 days a week. And some of the better ways to reach us, outside of just coming and stopping in and saying hello, is on Facebook and Instagram. So it's RND Coffee on Facebook, and then at Roanoke Coffee on Instagram.
And then our website's roanokecoffee.com.
Okay. And anything we left out, Steffon or Quincy, anything you want to highlight as we
I'm just super happy to, one, have the doors open, but the community support thus far has been fantastic, and we're very thankful.
Yeah, there's a lot going on now, new, and there's more coming. So this is only going to get better. You got a beautiful place here.
you allow dogs too, right?
Well, we do on like the little patio area we have out front. You know, we've got our the dog bowl out there, and so people, you know, sort of often just tie up their dog, run in, get a coffee, or we'll run it out to them, that kind of thing.
There you
but
go.
you know, not really inside besides service dogs.
Right, gotcha. Well, you guys are so talented, and welcome to the neighborhood, and we're so glad you're here, and this is going to be a big thing, and I'm going to get me some of that coffee jelly, Quincy.
All right.
We'll see you guys around. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Let's have some
Thank you
coffee.
so much.
Sir. All right, that's it. Thank you so much.
I wonder what it's like to be nice, and I've been wondering that since 95. If society takes its toll, where does all the good money go? My songs never made a difference. I found no bullshit into my existence. Her thoughts flow like faucets on, not a drip drip but a waterfall. I got everyone around me. She's a biscuit and loneliness surrounds thee. She's authorized and I'm mesmerized. She's got glasses on and everybody's closed their eyes. All in all, she's misty-eyed, thundering through a great divide. Buzzwords filling up her eyes. Too smart and hard to irritate. Quick wit but nothing good to say. Try to be a Mrs. Hemingway. I wonder what it's like to live in the world she's created. It's a given. Everybody else has a limit. She's got no bounds to her own cognition. But nobody is hearing you. Everything you think is number one, they've made it two. We all know she swam in Walden. Head of ideas, mouth does no talking. I know she read every genius, every backstory to explain talk singing. And all she took was author's titles. Never did more than emulate her idols. Oh, all in all, she's misty-eyed, thundering through a great divide. Buzzwords filling up her eyes. the same as the people I used to know. Looked around and they believed it. Smart/me is more convenient. Her bread and butter is Hunter S. Thompson. She knows it all and she quotes it often. It doesn't matter who, when, where, or why.